go after a guy. And no one's ever been charged with a criminal civil rights violation for conducting a investigation of the premises. I mean, with all of the government personnel that go breaking down doors and all, who are never charged with anything, here Ochapinti and his group requested verbal okay before they inspected the premises. But then, of course, the drug dealers later said, oh, no, we didn't give him an okay. Right. So, anyhow, right. So here he ends up in prison. That pretty much shoots down the drug interdiction information. Now, incidentally, that's shortly before the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center. And, of course, the Jersey City, Ramsey Youssef in Jersey City, some of their money was coming from the drug activity. So by arresting Ochapinti, that kept those funds going.
So they arrested him on what specific charge? Did they arrest Ochapinti on not having warrants or any kind of,
they didn't
what was he charged with? What was Ochapinti charged with when he went to jail?
Now, Ochapinti gave me a lot of information, and as he explained to me, it was simply, it was their practice to go to the bodegas and request verbal permission to conduct an investigation, and they got the verbal. So they didn't force their way in. So
he went to the drug dealers' bodegas, asked to search the residence by the permission of the people in the bodega, and he did so.
Yes, but then later on, then they said, no, we didn't give him verbal. Well, that's a relatively minor thing. Right. But anyhow, so he's in prison, and then President George H.W. Bush and issues a pardon for the guy. But now he loses, he's no longer in government. But it sends a message to others, hey, and that message is well received by other government personnel, because the list of people I have that have been retaliated against, these are good government people that they didn't play the game. So they paid the price, just like I paid the price.
And can you tell our audience what were some of the things that happened to you?
Well, first of all, I left government. I refused to work under the corrupt conditions that were going on. So I continued my exposure activities while I was out, but I was also investing in real estate. So I eventually had about $10 million in real estate in California. So like an idiot, instead of enjoying myself, I'm using the money to continue to publicize. I had a twin-engine plane. I would be flying all over the country, appearing on TV and radio shows. There's no money in doing something like this. And so what they did, and without going into the complex details, eventually a CIA front law firm in San Francisco filed a sham charge legal action against me. Actually, that was in 82, and between 1982 and 2005, there was over 50 lawyers and law firms filing sham actions against me. But anyhow, what finally happened, first when I'm trying to report these the criminal activities, not only did federal judges refuse to receive it, but they issued orders that for the rest of my life, and those orders are still valid, for the rest of my life, bars me from filing any papers in any federal district or appellate court. Well, then I'm finding out more information after the first order, that order was written. So I tried to report him again. This was to the federal courts in Sacramento. So U.S. Attorney David Levi, who was then promoted to federal judge, charged me with criminal contempt of court for attempting to file filing papers in the federal courts that I was barred from doing. Well, first of all, an order like barring me for the remainder of my life from addressing federal filing papers in federal courts is about as unlawful and unconstitutional as you can get. And, of course, it was obviously obstruction of justice because they didn't want me to report these federal crimes. But anyhow, so we have the U.S. attorney, and there were several judges involved. And at the age of 67, no jury trial. They denied me a jury trial. I'm sent to federal prison for 6 months. And while I'm in federal prison, then without any notice to me, and there's more involved in this, but I'll give you the highlights. They issue an order seizing and liquidating my assets. Now, those are the assets that they knew were funding my exposure activities. Well, that order was, I think, about 1987, and it took them from 1987 to about 1995 to liquidate all my assets. I had a lot of assets. I had motels, truck stops, apartment. I had over 100 apartments, a lot of land, and so I guess they figured, well, that would be the end of me. Well, matter of fact, then when I did get a chance to file an objection to it, I'm charged with criminal contempt of court again for filing objections to the seizure and liquidation of my assets because the judge had earlier rendered an order barring me from filing any objections. Now, I mean, this is true.
Wow. I mean, talk about totally illegal. They denied your right for trial. They denied your right to file documents reporting crimes. They threw you in jail. They stole your property and your assets. And this is law? It's disgusting, Rodney. It's terrible.
Well, think of the big picture, though. All of this was to keep me from reporting the corruption in the same areas that were made 9/11 possible. But you know, someone has to spend a little time to realize this, and people don't seem to want to read these type of books, especially the last few years since the internet and all of the video games has come in. People aren't reading much anymore. So, you know, when I get on a radio show like this, I feel really it's a waste of time because no one listens. But what I try to do, I get a little satisfaction out of at least showing how the public are not only victims but enablers of their own fate by not spending a little time to look at the facts, what's being done to them. They're being taken for saps by just about every Tom, Dick, and Harry, starting with members of Congress.
Have you ever thought about giving it? I mean, have you ever introduced any of your information to like movie producers, or has anybody wanted to tell these stories? I mean, you know, I would think that if they made movies about some of these stories, they would be pretty interesting, wouldn't you think?
Well, the first contact I had was right after the first book came out in 1978. Jackie Cooper. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Jackie Cooper.
But I believe he's from the Little Rascals, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, he was then he became a movie producer.
Yeah, so, and didn't he also play in the Addams Family? Was that Uncle Fester? Oh, no, that's Jackie Coogan. Okay, different guy, sorry.
Anyhow, I flew down to Los Angeles and met with him, and he wanted to do a 3-part television series on just my first book, which was the first edition of Unfriendly Skies. And but what he eventually found out is nobody would fund something like that. But anyhow, about 10 years ago, I had, and these are totally unsolicited, I had 2 different outfits in Los Angeles contact me about wanting to do a television series